had enough at that point.
Sick. Well, you certainly gave that monster the business.
All right, can you get me the readings from your station? Ben?
Yeah?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but does your station have a recliner?
Yup. You and Brian aren't the only ones who can make upgrades around these here parts. Look, I don't know what half these things do. To me, this is just a panel full of technical shizzle whizzle and flashing lights. So I'm gonna kick back, put my feet up and relax when I'm in here. It's even got a built-in mini fridge. Soda?
You don't understand any of it?
I could feel the waves of disbelief down the hall. What's going on?
Apparently, Ben has no idea how anything in here works.
What?
I mean, I can tell when an alarm's going off, but can you blame me? Half this stuff needs a degree in theoretical physics to even be able to spell it.
Have you asked Brian to explain it to you?
Yes. 4 times since you both unveiled it. But even when I tell him to explain it to me like I'm 5, he starts blathering on about techno-shunt conduits and inverse plasma maniflux folds and something called the ionic threshold between... Nope. Can't even remember all of that one.
Look, we're due to record soon, but when we're done, perhaps you, Sasha, can sit down with Ben and try and walk him through it without all the technobabble.
I'll try. And for your sake, Ben, I'll be sure to use small words.
Thank you.
What up, my ninjomies?
What?
You know, ninjas, homies, ninjomies.
Oh, God.
Those poor words.
What did they ever do to you?
It's a portmanteau.
Dude, even I know what a portmanteau is.
Right. Anyway, are we ready to get the recording underway or not?
Not just yet. Had to come in to get my notes. Did you know that Ben has no idea what any of the systems and... Wait. What are we calling this room? I've just been calling it the sensor room.
The sensor room? It's a little layman, but it works.
I've been calling it stellar cartography.
Wait, you've been calling it the same as a room on the USS Voyager used to map stars. Ben, this room was built for dimensional analysis.
Well, technically speaking, every Federation vessel had a stellar cartography department. It just got more screen time in Voyager due to having to map the Delta Quadrant. And yes, I know that it doesn't technically apply in this case, but I've always wanted to be all Mr. Kim, help Balana in engineering, or Mr. Paris, take us to Warp 9. Doctor, you have incoming wounded. If you need me, I'll be in stellar cartography. Or my personal favorite, Mr. Tuvok, throw Mr. Neelix out of the airlock.
Maybe we could just call it the battle bridge.
You're all Star Trekking again, aren't you?
Besides, there's no specific word for the field of study of alternate dimensions.
How did...
I Googled it.
I suppose I could easily add the ability to map stars. It wouldn't take me too long. But right now, this room is strictly for the study of other dimensions.
Speaking of which, did you ever find out what was causing that overwhelming wave of pink energy?
The results were inconclusive, but I'm working on a theory. I just need a little bit more information, that's all.
Okay, I got my notes. Let's get this recording out of the way, and then I can sit down and help Ben with the systems in here. Brian, you and Mike can head to your lab and just crunch the numbers.
Thanks, Sasha. That almost makes me feel bad for making you and Mike do the Christmas episode this season. Almost.
All because you didn't get to do the Adam Park trilogy in season 2, hey?
No, not just that.
Huh?
Partly that. But it was also for the 763,000 Tommy Oliver episode you made me review, Mike. Given all of that, I figured you could handle one itsy bitsy little Christmas episode.
And me, well, I just wanted a day off.
All right. Well, next season we're all doing the Christmas episode, if there is one.
Deal.
Sounds good to me. And I promise to try and learn all of this stuff. It's just super complicated.
It's fine, bud. Don't worry too much. Just learn at your own pace. Now let's go record.
Y'all just jealous of my recliner, and you know it.
Can't start a revolution without picking a fight tonight. We're not a substitution. I'm drawing the line this time. Do you believe me now?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Voices from the Grid. It is time for us to finally say goodbye to Mighty Morphin. We're here recording the finale of season 3, coincidentally on the 22nd anniversary of my beloved Lightspeed Rescue debuting. It's been a long journey for the last 3 seasons. And there is no specific episode we're reviewing today. It's just me and the others just talking about season 3 and Mighty Morphin as a whole in general. So, speaking of the others, I am your Black Ranger for now, Mr. Ben Taylor. Then we have our Blue Ranger, Mr. Brian Massey. Hello, Brian.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Not bad.
Yeah, same.
We
I don't quite have the energy.
We have our White Ranger, Mr. Michael Lindenbaum.
Howdy. I am here. I have not fallen down yet.
We all get some energy. Please, damn.
Hold on.
I need like 10
And-
more minutes for the caffeine to kick in. Then I'll be cute and snarky again.
There we go. All right, cool.
And that
All right.
third person that you heard was our Red Ranger for now, Mrs. Sasha Kaplan.
The one, the only, the one waiting for the sweet relief of caffeine to kick in.
So we're here finally moving on from Mighty Morphin, only to run into a big Zeo wall later. But that can come then. So what a season, huh?
Yeah, it was something, man. And it's funny, because whenever I think back fondly on Mighty Morphin, I always think of seasons 1 and 2, and I subconsciously, like, I'll remember bits and pieces of season 3, but I forgot how disjointed this season could feel at times.
Yeah.
So this was an experience.
Not gonna lie, I forgot the season even had filler episodes until I went back to look through the season to like remind myself, like, what were the episodes of the season? Which ones did I like? And I was like, oh wait, this was in season 3. It's sort of like, I don't know, either it's because of our like slightly weird recording schedule this time around,
Yeah.
or it's just how weird the season is, or it's probably the combination of the two that you just sort of like forgot everything. But I've been reminded.
But I think it's also a little bit fair to say that all of Mighty Morphin kind of runs together,
Yeah.
right? All 3 seasons kind of, you don't have as many initially like first look indicators that you're looking at a specific season, right? Later seasons, you'll have the suits, the command center, blah 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 blah, right? Even in Zeo, even in Turbo, when the ranges remain very similar. But all of Mighty Morphin just kind of runs together, right?
A little bit. I mean, and certainly there are.
Let's have Mike
great-
actually say something at this point.
I mean, in their way of their version of continuity, even though they don't know what continuity is.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like that's really all you can say. That's why it feels like it's all connected within each other, because it's just one big continuous story in a way.
And what did you think of season 3? Just like
Lot of
overall arc.
That metallic armor, man. I'm totally not just kidding.
I will reach through the screen and hit you.
Do it.
Reaches for a Golden Knights alternate jersey that probably mimicked the Power Rangers.
Well, Brian could probably whip up something that would allow Ben to sear through the time-space continuum and just hit you.
And I'll call it Slap-A-Vision.
But I mean, there wasn't as much filler to this season
Yeah.
as there
Yeah.
was, because like they're obviously focusing on a lot of things at the same time, because they're focusing on, you know, removing Kim, adding her replacement,
Mhm.
you know, bringing in new big bads, which then brought in different Rangers for a short time so they can go in and do the Zeo quest. And, you know, so it, like, to me, it felt like this was like a little bit more of a cohesive season compared to other seasons, because there was more of an end game to what they're trying to accomplish in like whatever, like the 50 something episodes that they had for this season.
Yeah. So let's break it down a little bit, right? Let's start with talking about the Rangers themselves. This includes Kim's exit arc. We'll talk about Catherine on her own in a minute, right? Because there's stuff to say there. But how do you feel about the Rangers' journey this season? Like, did they change much? Are they still the same people? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I will start with this one because we need to. Adam was criminally underutilized this season. Like, Adam was the most built up new Ranger from season 2, and then this season was like absolutely no character development, no character growth.
He had a lantern episode.
He did.
That's about it.
If you're asking me, Adam is always critically underused, even when he's the star of the episode.
Yeah.
So,
but you see what I'm saying though. Like remember, like season 2 had, you know, the Adam Park trilogy, where it was 3 straight episodes of just building up Adam to be this legitimate badass of the team, and then now you go into season 3 and he's like virtually non-existent.
Like, there were episodes, and like, I swear to God, I thought, did Adam actually have a line this episode? Like, that's how criminally underused he is. I was like, he barely talked sometimes, and I was like, that is BS. Like, give my dude some lines.
the thing is, if they'd done it to give Rocky and Aisha more character development, I'd have been all right with it, right? But they didn't. It was all in favor of either Tommy or the 2 arcs of getting rid of the 2 characters, right?
Well, actually, there are 2 episodes this season that are very Rocky centered. They have the exact same plot.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
But But they do demonstrate one thing. Rocky is apparently not terrible at chemistry for some reason. Which, like, it's
Still
fine.
can't
He can be
find
good
his
at
way out
chemistry.
of a room.
What?
He still can't find his way out of a room. Sorry,
He's an
carry on.
idiot savant that way.
Well, it's like they could have done, like, there's 2 episodes. Where are they here? I'm looking at the list right now. It was Wizard for a Day and Fourth Down and Long, right? And they basically have the same plot.
Potion
Of,
Notion?
No, Potion Notion was a Kim Skull episode.
Well, whatever.
and so you have Rocky basically rescuing the rest of the Rangers, and what really could have been like a nice like progression, continuation of like Billy's sciencey stuff, but instead it's given to Rocky, which I guess you could argue hints at what we'll see in Zeo a little bit of, like, you know, Rocky becoming the Blue Ranger, but it doesn't really do much in the long scheme of things because we never come back to his skills in chemistry.
Because Rocky just wants to have fun.
He does. Yeah. Boy. Well, but at least he got to do stuff, even though, like, I wish Adam got to do more, but that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
I think you can see the cementing of Power Rangers for a while turning into the Tommy Show starring Tommy Oliver, featuring Tommy Oliver.
Definitely.
And he's joined by his friends, and so.
And it's not really like Tommy got a whole like episodes to himself or anything, but it's more of the fact that he became the center of attention on group episodes, right? Like everything is sort of, you can't really do an episode where he doesn't have a major role, at least with the exception of these a few filler episodes, right? And I guess Follow That Cab, which is a fantastic episode, no matter what anybody else says.
It was Follow That Cab. Potion Notion was better.
I liked Follow That Cab. It was fun. And it was actually funny. Which I don't laugh a lot at Dirt and Power Rangers because it's all kind of one big sad joke, but Follow That Cab was fun.
Okay. Sure. But I think it didn't need to exist where it did.
This is true, but that doesn't mean I still didn't enjoy it.
But yeah, like, just to go to back to the Rocky thing for a split second. What he did have focus episodes, because they had Rocky and Aisha had focus episodes in season 2 as well. That doesn't mean they evolved the character, right?
Yeah.
Adam's trilogy. I hope you both enjoyed Dreaming of a White Ranger.
I hate you.
Was at least he evolved his character, right? At least he got to a certain point, like, and I know we've made the joke a lot and we find it incredibly funny, but the joke about Rocky not being able to find his way out of a round room with a door isn't a joke. This man literally saved the Power Rangers with science, and we're still making jokes about how he's the dumb one, right? Like, it didn't do anything to evolve his character.
None whatsoever.
Yeah.
I forgot Aisha was in this season at points. Did she have a focus episode this season?
No.
Hers was the her focus episodes were kind of taken away by Kat, but it was like the animal vet.
Yeah, that was her overall story, right?
Yeah.
But did she have a focus episode?
No.
I don't recall. None of which I reviewed. I don't really remember having an Aisha focused episode. So
I mean, they do have a little bit of a moment for her in Stop the Hate Master.
Right, I guess Stop the Hate Master was
okay.
a focus episode.
Yeah, I misspoke.
She had the whole Next.
But it
Power of
tells you
love
how
thing
important
with the
that episode
necklace.
was that none of us remembered it until now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like if we're talking about character building episodes, there's a reason we keep referencing Adam's trilogy, right? Because it built the character, it advanced the character, it did something for the character that carried over in season 2 that unfortunately disappears in season 3, but that's not because of Adam's actions. It's because he's sort of been sidelined for other things. And
Yeah.
With
one of the things we need to talk about is like the amount, and there's a reason for this, right? We talked about how Kim got basically a 12, what was it, a 12 episode?
10 episode. The,
10
the, the,
episode.
the, it's not Kim, but the handing over of the pink powers got
There,
a 10
yeah.
episode arc, which
Yeah.
is a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot of pink.
Too much pink.
And
Too much.
I think part of the reason why I even forgot about that was because I think because we were just saying like there's not a whole lot of filler in this season, but there kind of is, and I want to say Stop the Hate Master was kind of one of those filler two-parters because it doesn't do
I'd
whole lot
argue that outside of the 3-part season opener backdoor pilot that we refuse to acknowledge exists,
yeah.
it's the only filler 2-parter. Every other multi-part episode is there for a reason.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think we agreed that Stop the Hate Master didn't need to be a 2-parter.
Yeah.
No,
exactly.
it didn't, and it did nothing to advance Aisha's character. So
Well, because after
that's-
this season, she doesn't have a character.
yeah, and so it just I did a thing. Cool. Are we gonna reference that ever again? Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Like,
yeah, it's like she does stop the hate master, then we see her working at the vet, and then she gets written out off screen, and that's Aisha's arc in season 3.
which that whole thing was just weird too. But
Yeah,
that was so weird.
poor
whatever.
Karen Ashley, right?
Yeah.
It's not cool. It's not cool.
And then we're introduced to Tanya as well,
Yeah.
who admittedly doesn't get a whole lot of time to shine in season 3 because we will see more from her in Zeo.
Mm-hmm.
But it does raise the small. You've heard my rant on this by now in previous episodes. The words time paradoxes spring to mind. It's just not good. Anyway, we've talked about Aisha, a little bit about Adam and Rocky. Kim, we see the last of what might be, for most people watching, there is this, what I call this fallacy, where Power Rangers kind of ends after Mighty Morphing, right? Like, if it doesn't have the words Mighty Morphing on the front, they're not interested.
Yeah.
I'm looking
they're
at you.
stupid.
I'm looking at you, Hasbro of the Lightning Collection.
They know what they did.
And I would argue that Kimberly is probably the second most beloved Ranger behind Tommy. But we get rid of Kimberly this season. She's no longer a Ranger. In what I think might be one of the best told departure arcs for any Ranger, like,
Yeah,
ever.
definitely.
Sure, it wasn't the best because of the whole pan global games and the weak writing actually within the episodes, but they actually took the time to write a very good departure arc for her, right?
Like they actually paid attention to like what they're trying to do and make sure that when they went from that first episode to that 10th episode, that everything followed within the storyline that they wanted it to tell, which like at that point you weren't getting that in Power Rangers. It was like almost every episode outside of a 2 or 3 parter was its own standalone story. There was no interconnected story weaving through multiple episodes.
And I think it did a good job of addressing what Kim wants to do with her life moving forward. Her fears about like, well, what if I leave? You know, like there's nobody else that could take over for me, when obviously there was. And it not only gives Kim a springboard off into bigger and better things, but then it gives us more of Kat's backstory too, you know, and we get this kind of we're not so different, you and I kind of thing, where, you know, they're able to connect, and you see that like overall, like Kim is assured over time, okay, cool, the pink coin's going to be left in good hands. So I think it tells that story pretty well. Is it the greatest? No, but it tells a coherent story that anyone could follow, really, I think.
In terms of the departures of all the original Rangers and Aisha, I would say Kim has the best arc out of the whole thing, because we know we know the reasons why the first departure of Jason, Zach, and Trini was as ridiculous and gosh as it was, right? And
that was ridiculous.
Here, I think what happened was, I think she probably told them at the end of season 2 that like, hey, I think I'm done. Can we figure this out? And so they took the time to craft a much more believable story than a freaking peace conference, right? For her to leave, which only makes Aisha's departure all the way they wrote Aisha's departure all the more painful, in contrast, because we lose 2 Rangers this season. We lose Kim and we lose Aisha, and Kim gets a 10-episode arc. And after the Rangers are turned into kids, we never see Karen Ashley in the show.
Yeah.
And that's just real. Like, I remember, like, I'd never watched the Zeo arc, and like I knew that Aisha gets written out and it's ridiculous. And to actually watch it, you're like, wait, did they really just do this? Like, that's not only like it like you can like, it's just not cool. It was just really poorly done.
Well, yeah, like Kim gets this giant, like, yes, we've prepackaged this all for you, and then, you know, Aisha gets this fart in the wind kind of thing about like, okay, cool, you're gone by, and it's kind of disrespectful, honestly, and it almost sounds like Amy Jo Johnson either had a better agent or she just had more seniority as a cast member, because and I can kind of see it from a producer standpoint to a small degree, where it's like, well, we just did this 10-episode arc where we're getting rid of one Ranger, and then now you're leaving too. No, we don't have time to write you out either. Like, sorry. So like, is it a bad excuse? Yeah, but it's probably what happened.
So according to this, by early 1996, Karen decided to leave because she decided she could not handle the production scheduling. Originally, Karen was promised 10 episodes, but it was eventually downgraded to 2 due to needing to extend the Zeo Crystal retrieval saga. So her write-off of the show was because her character moved to Africa and was replaced by Nakia Burris as Tanya Sloan. So, and apparently, according to this day, she's still quite bitter about the circumstances surrounding her departure. So that kind of explains what it was.
I mean, I can understand.
So Karen Lee originally wanted to leave, was promised 10 episodes, but then was cut down to 2.
So we also, speaking of Tanya, we also lose Billy.
We will lose Billy
as a Ranger. He's already kind of. This is what I mean is we sort of we've seen the end of Billy's Ranger
Yeah.
role at this point, because the last time Billy morphs is
Another break in the wall.
before he's a kid, right?
Yeah.
How, being the other original remaining Ranger, how do you feel about how they treated Billy? Did they know at this point, do you think, that he wasn't going to be a Ranger in season 3 in Zeo? That they had to, right? Because there was only 5 Zeo crystals.
Given what we know happened behind the scenes to David Yost over the course of the series, I would say it's a safe bet that they either from the Power Ranger perspectives, they claimed that by season 3 or something, David Yost was really difficult to work with and blah 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 blah, and he was ridiculous, which we know was not necessarily true. Based on what David Yost has said in interviews, based on his friendship with the rest of the cast of Rangers, or Ranger actors, I should say. So I wonder if it's in this seasons that they're we're done with you. And he was done too, for various reasons that he's outlined.
That's probably the most likely scenario. I don't know the entire story, because this is definitely a story that has, you're going to hear it from multiple sides about what happened and what didn't happen. And I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but, he at least sticks around for part of Zeo. He kind of just turns into the Power Rangers equivalent of Steve Jobs almost.
Yeah.
He does wear a lot of turtlenecks. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm going to invent stuff, and that's fine. I'm going into Zeo, as a kid, I definitely miss my Blue Boy, because Billy was probably he was the constant throughout all of Mighty Morphin. He was the one constant, and seeing him get written out like that, and there's hopes, and we'll talk about it in Zeo, but there's hopes that he comes back, but then that's kind of shafted. It feels a little weird, and especially when you're watching it the first time through, or the first time in years, like I was, when you realize that you've seen him more for the last time, it kind of hits you in a weird way, and it feels weird once you have that realization. It's oh my god, wow.
Because we'll actually talk about the reasons for his departure when we get to him leaving some 40-something episodes into Zeo, right?
Yeah.
I was asking a bit more about how it felt to lose Billy as a Ranger rather than lose him from the series. And I think Brian's touched on that with, you don't realize it's his last morph until next season, right?
Yeah. Because there's this, they almost give you this little bit of hope that, he is gonna, be a Zeo Ranger. And then you're standing under that rug and they just yank it out from under you. And then you take this awful bump that you're not expecting, and it hurts.
All right. So
plenty of fodder to talk about for next season.
So here's the question. When you look at the 5 Zeo crystals and you have Billy, who would you, assuming you can't get rid of Tommy, you can't get rid of Kat, you can't get rid of Tanya, because they brought her into the show, right? So they're not just going to get rid of her.
Right.
Rocky's the ablative piece of armor here, right?
Yes.
Rocky. I'm not the only one thinking that.
Oh no, you're definitely not. I was mouthing Rocky as you were talking, because he's the only option.
Anyway, and he goes on to be blue, right? Anyway,
give me my color back.
Let's do what I've been trying to avoid for so long. Let's talk about the big ponytailed boy, Thomas Oliver.
Yeah, I'm good. There's nothing much to say.
This one season, I don't think, in the first 2 seasons, he at least had character development for himself. It felt like this season there wasn't really much development for the actual character itself because things were more focused on Kim's departure, getting the Zeo crystals.
Yeah.
Like the Rangers, really essentially more so taking a backseat to, outside of Kim's arc and introducing Kat. The Rangers weren't the major focus, and it was kind of evident with Tommy because normally he would always have some episode that would build him up to try to give him more, character or development. He didn't even have that this season, honestly.
The closest thing we get is him in the pit of despair, or the where they get the Zeo crystal from.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what he does have this season, though. Corny monologues. Like he has them aplenty, and it's almost like, when they were planning season 3, in my head, I just see JDF going up to Spawn or something, or like one of the head writers, like Shuki Levy, and going like, so, I've been taking classes and I really want to try monologuing. I want to try and step up my acting game. And it's like, okay, we'll do that, dude. And like, don't give him a monologue again, please. They're so bad.
Just have him do musicals. It's okay.
Yeah, like his monologue in Ninja Quest, when like they're leaving and like, he's trying to make Ninja feel bad. I'm like, oh god, this is so bad.
Your monologue made me feel so bad that it makes me not want to help you even more.
Hey, go away, please. Like, seriously, please get out of here. Go, get.
And nothing he said in that moment was also really like anything profound. It's like, we're gonna keep fighting no matter what. It's like, you're Power Rangers, that's in the job description. And
you are not Bill Paxton in Independence Day, okay? You're just not.
Right? Like, that's not, exactly.
Tommy may not have had an episode to really build him up as the star of the show, because they were just treating him like that every episode, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, I would argue that he didn't need an episode to make him the central focus. When the moment she turns up, Kat gets goo eyes for him.
Yeah.
Like big old, like she practically does that thing where like her eyes bulge out of her head and she starts whistling and it gets a wolf face, and like from the old Warner Brothers cartoons, right? Like it's I mean, we commented on it at the time. It's creepy.
Yeah.
How she fixates on him.
Kat does not pass the Bechdel test at all. No. And it is very creepy. Who steals a photo of a guy where his girlfriend's in the photo too, and it's just like, I'll save that for later. Like, that is no.
Yeah, that's called being a stalker.
Ugh, God.
And like,
God.
And it's immediately evident from the moment that she's like, do you want to take a ride in my car? Right? It's just...
As long as I don't get caught in wormholes, I think I'll be okay with this. But this still has a lot of red flags to it.
Right? Like, how do you not look at that and go, sure, person I've never met before.
Stranger danger.
You couldn't possibly be some kind of villain sent after me by Rita or Zed. Like,
no, they've done the whole evil ranger thing before. It's done. There's no way they do anything like that again or come close to it. No. Oh wait, she's the cat.
Or even like Squatter Babu in disguise, right? Like.
Yeah. Oh my God. Hold on. Can you imagine Babu doing like that? Like that Bugs Bunny, like with the like, leg and the pantyhose thing. Come here, big boy. It's like, ooga. That would be dumb. But
I'd watch that episode of Power Rangers.
And since we've brought her up, what do we think of our new Pink Ranger, Miss Catherine?
I mean, if it wasn't for Kat's one episode, Another Brick in the Wall, we wouldn't have had the great Billy moments.
Right, but again, I would like to point out, if it wasn't for Kat's episode, we wouldn't have got Billy moments.
Yeah.
Do we see a disconnect here?
Yep.
Kat gets a lot of focus this season. Personally, while I've been quite vocal about her acting, right, which isn't the best, I think it was to the character's the profit that she gets so much focus, right? Because as I said before, Kim was this beloved character, right? To try and replace her is really difficult. And I think if they just done what they end up doing in Turbo, which is writing in Cassie out of nowhere to replace Kat, right? You'd have been like, nah, that's not going to work for me, right? Much like you do when it happens in Turbo.
But I mean, also
it's not
look
till you
at
get
it like from a season 2 aspect. When Rocky, Adam, and Aisha came in,
yeah,
got a few episodes to kind of get used to them, and then also aid the Rangers
yes,
before actually taking over. And then after they became Rangers, you would get, for better or for worse, depending on who you were looking at, get character-centric episodes for them. So in a way, they're kind of following that same mold with Kat. You know, like you introduce her, you know, a little different because they made her full-blown evil for a while, but then having the spell break off, and then once she became a Ranger, you had to do those Ranger-specific episodes on her, kind of build her up into that scene, just like they had to do with Rocky, Adam, and Aisha season 4. So it's like you're kind of following that same mold in a way. And like, I wouldn't be surprised when we go into Zeo, you kind of see that with Tanya, where in the first few episodes, they're going to be a little bit more Tanya specific because they need to build her up. Because you've only seen her on screen as an adult or a teenager for like a couple minutes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Brian?
I would argue too, the reason, well, okay, I've gone into part of the reason why I think Kim got as long of a goodbye arc as she did, but also part of me wonders if this is the producers trying to make amends in a way, well, not make amends, but trying to avoid the mistakes of what happened when, you know, Austin St. John and crew just kind of abruptly left. Like they didn't
They didn't leave, they were fired.
They were fired, sure, but
that's the difference.
You know, they didn't want that awkwardness of like, hey, my voice doesn't quite match the other guy. You know, like they didn't want that. And also they didn't necessarily have to avoid that situation here because Kim was leaving on her own accord, or Amy Jo Johnson, mind you. So I think that they were trying to like, okay, we have another Ranger departing. Let's do this the right way this time.
I would argue that that's a really good theory. And then I would hold up Aisha's departure and go, yeah, they really care.
But here's the thing. I think it depends on when they said they were leaving, because it's very evident right from the backdoor pilot that shall not be named that Amy Jo Johnson was probably in negotiations of leaving before they started filming season 3. Right? She probably talked to them ahead of time, was like, look, guys, I think I'm done. I'd like to leave the show. And they're like, okay, can you give us like a set amount of episodes? And she's like, okay. Yeah. And then maybe shortly after that, or a few episodes into season 3, Karen Ashley says, we don't know exactly the timeline here, right? Yeah. Says, okay, I'm leaving. And they're like, okay, we can get you those 10 episodes. But then like you have 2 Rangers leaving, you have all of this stuff they're setting up. And Karen Ashley's character unfortunately gets the butt end of that.
I think because Karen was supposed to get 10 episodes left, my gut tells me she probably told him mid-season when they're filming. So
Could be.
and that's probably why Karen in a way got the short end of the stick, because instead of doing it like in between seasons like the way Amy Jo Johnson did, Karen just probably said, mid-season, hey, I can't handle this anymore, I'm done. And so they probably had to work a little bit more on the fly for her, whereas they actually had the time to do a proper write-out for Kim.
There has to be a reason that, and we won't go into it too much more, but there has to be a reason that Aisha was Karen Ashley Aisha was promised a 10-episode arc, didn't get it, and there's so much filler in the season. There has to be a reason, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably about the timing of when she told them. Anyway.
Unsolved Mysteries Ranger Edition.
So,
if I can go back to the cat question, because I haven't touched upon this yet. I would say Kat is a good contrast to Kimberly, just a little bit, because even though she's hold on, I know that face. She's sort of bubbly and girly, but she didn't quite have the same chutzpah that Kimberly did after this whole not being evil thing, which I talked about how Kat was a little more interesting when she was evil, at least to me, because she was sort of like a different kind of evil, right? Tommy's evil was like super blatant once they found out, right? And they knew he was evil and he was a jerk, but Kat was kind of an interesting contrast to that, because she was friendly with the Rangers but doing things behind the scenes that they weren't aware of. And so I would say I don't. And then, we have this whole Alien Ranger arc when they're children. And I liked Kid Kat. I did. I think she had some moments. Not the best actress. They really should have just told her, don't do the accent, or helped her to do the accent. But I mean,
hold on.
Yeah. Aside from that, I didn't mind her, at least in the beginning. My point being that, like, she's okay. I am not a fan of Kat. I don't think I ever have been. And there's nothing really bad about her. She's just kind of
I think and yes, I made the face, because I'd argue that once she's not evil anymore and she becomes a Power Ranger, short of the accent, Kat and Kim are the same person. They would act the same way in any situation. They both got sporty backgrounds. They're both SWATs. They both love Tommy. Like, I would argue they're the same person.
I just felt like her personality didn't have that same, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it didn't have the same punch behind it, if that makes any sense.
She's not necessarily got the same personality, right? Because that would be almost impossible, short of having Amy Jo Johnson actually play the character, right? But what makes Adam interesting compared to Zach is the different way, other than the fact he's Adam Parker, the greatest Power Ranger of all time, is the way they would react differently in certain situations. The thing that makes Trini and Aisha is they're different people. They've got different reactions. They do different things. The difference between Jason and Rocky, yes, they're both, I'm going to
You don't even have to say anything. We already know the difference between those two.
One knows where doors are. But the point, Kat just feels like a plug and replace for Kimberly, rather than a new character.
This is very much, there's a void here that needs to be filled.
We need a girly one, and he's pink.
Yeah, like anything and everything that Kim was doing that was important to her role as a Power Ranger and as Tommy's girlfriend, we need to put somebody else in there so we can continue on that, which the more I think about it, the more weird it gets. It's like, no, wait, no, you hold on. No, it's not Kim. You need to like let that relationship kind of, if it's going to happen, let it happen naturally like it did with Kim. Don't just continue. That's even weirder too. It's like,
Yeah.
So because somebody probably just didn't want to rewrite scripts or something. I don't know.
And like, anyway, we'll move on at this point. The point being, Cat is a mixed bag, right? There's good, there's bad. We've talked about the Rangers. I'm not going to talk about Zordon because I don't want to swear a lot. Let's move on to our villains for the season. Rita and Zed continue their somewhat unsuccessful ways, but yet they have the addition of our big, beautiful, bony boy, Rito Repulso, who immediately shows up on Rex's shop. And as we had discussed in the Ninja Quest episodes, makes a statement for how the season is going to go as a whole, right? Talk about the villains this season, throw Master Vile in there if you want, and definitely talk about the multiple conga lines.
Master Vile was the smartest one because he got out of there as soon as he realized he wasn't going to really win.
Yes, that is exactly
definition
what
of
I said.
insanity here, folks. Rito is, I think, one of the most memorable characters in a lot of ways, just because he comes out strong, equal parts strong and equal parts ridiculous, right? Like we talked about this in Ninja Quest, right? Like he shows up with presents and calls Zed Eddie and is just like a derp, but then he's also manages to pack quite a punch against the Rangers. And then you have, like, we've talked over the course of this season about how this season in a lot of ways is different and is setting up a lot of future things. And one of the things that it's getting us used to is Rita and Zed not being the it child, right? Because we've had this 3-season long arc of the Rangers just like basically managing to keep the forces of evil at bay, but never actually defeating them. And so you introduced Rito to shake up the status quo, even though we do see, I think, Squad and Babu like once this season, which I thought was hilarious.
Poor Squad and Babu.
Don't care. Finster's doing a little, Finster's even like changing up his tactics a little bit and doing things a little differently. And then you have the introduction of Master Vile. And Vile, like Mike said, he pieces out and he's like, yeah, I'm not going to win this. Bye. I'm going to go back to my Conquer Galaxy and chill. So this is all getting us.
Smart one.
He is, yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and Rito also is like dripping with personality, and I would even argue kind of in a gross way, because like one of his like little idiosyncrasies is like somebody will be like, that idea stinks or whatever, and he'll be like, really? Oh wow, it's been 30 days since my last shower. All right, or like he'll be, just little stuff like that to kind of add to the character's personality, make him gross. I really like Rito, and I also really like Master Vile. When we talked about that episode where Vile, pieces out, I thought it was hilarious how, because he's really kind of set up shop, and he's like, no, I'm going to show you how to do this the right way. And then things go awry, and he's just like, all right, well, I really like being here at Disneyland, but I didn't sign up for like an annual pass, so bye. Cool, it was fun. See you later.
And one of the most important things to mention, though, is that unlike previous seasons where like, there's like some level of like, we're going to get close to winning, but we won't. Zed and Rita, through a combination of these different villains and plots, actually managed to do some like real damage to the Rangers, right? They lose their powers. They lose their Zord. Twice, exactly. Yes, Ben, you're still muted for some reason, or you didn't say anything.
I just held up 2 fingers.
Yeah, so they lose the Zords twice, right? and they, the command center almost gets destroyed a couple of times, or things are going haywire in the command center. And like Rita and Zed, man, like Ben, you talked about it a couple episodes that the Rangers are sort of on the defense a lot this season, and they're sort of on the back burner because they're sort of having to keep up with these like new shenanigans that are actually packing a real punch. And it's not just a one of three-parter. It's multiple parters, and it's all of these different stories that are culminating with this, with Master Val's plot and reversing time and whatnot. But the Rangers are having to readjust to situations they're not used to.
And I
Let's
argue
be
that
frank about this. I'm sorry, Brian.
no, right, Rob.
Rita and Zed win,
Yes.
right? Let's be very clear about that. Like, they destroy the power coins when when they're all kids, and if it wasn't for the alien Rangers existing, Rita and Zed win. They beat the Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Like, let's be very explicit about that.
And let's also be
Yes.
very honest too. At the same time, Zed in the command center,
Woo.
forcing his way in, but pretty much giving an ultimatum to pretty much force them to let him in.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Yeah.
and it's not just him just being teleported in, it's his freaking chamber being in the command center too.
This is
Like
his
his
throne, yeah.
Yeah.
Platform and his throne and
Like that
chills,
because,
man.
Like, that's how big Zed and Rita win.
Yeah. Like I would argue, because with season 1 and season 2, the Rangers sure, they face challenges, but they, more often than not, they're always on the offense. They're always, they're always able to like, oh, we know how to beat this thing. And so I think that can start to get really boring really, really fast, which is why I will admit, I do like that they changed that up in season 3, where, as Ben put it, the Rangers are on the back foot this season, and like things just keep happening to them. And it's almost like they've crossed this threshold where they just can't get back to that original point of like, oh no, we're winning this thing, right? They're constantly filled with doubt. And that makes for a much more interesting conflict, I think, where the Rangers aren't sure that they're going to win. And I mean, sure, a lot of the episodes still follow the structure of, like, monster gets created, goes down, creates havoc, the Rangers go fight, and then they morph when like the threat gets big. They call it Megazord. Bob's your uncle. Everything's cool. At least for a good chunk of the episodes. But like when they change that up, I think that's when season 3 really gets interesting to me, is not knowing how they're gonna pull something off.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, Brian, where you said, the Rangers aren't sure if they're going to win or not. And I think it's not just the Rangers, right? It's the audience. And the audience is wondering, like, wait, there's a new status quo. Everything is different. Wait, the Rangers just lost their powers. What are they going to do? Are they going to defeat the bad guys? Where here, everything is a little bit less formulaic in some ways, minus the filler episodes. But there's also, like, we talked about that unintentional foreshadowing or semi-tensional foreshadowing.
Well, I also think that, like, in a way, when you lose Kim, it feels like the Rangers have to go through an actual transition at the same time. Because, like, when you're in the process of losing Jason, Trini, and Zach, they're kind of not there. And Rocky, Adam, and Aisha, even though they aren't Rangers yet, they're actually already helping them. So they're kind of easing that transition a bit to make it a little easier, whereas Kat, it's kind of just thrown into the fire right away. And when you have to do that with somebody who hasn't really integrated themselves within the group, like the way Rocky, Adam, and Aisha had done before they had turned into Power Rangers, it also adds that little bit of, okay, we need to kind of get Kat up to speed to us, because she's never been a Ranger before. She's never done a morph. She's never actually aided us in battle before, like the way the other 3 did before they were turned into the Rangers. So you also now are shorthanding yourself at the same time, because you're having to work with somebody to get them up to speed with you.
when I wrote about season 3, I was very clear about the fact that I wanted more out of that feeling that Mike just described, right? Like Kat gets her powers, and we know that there is a certain amount of knowledge transfer that comes with getting the powers, right? Like you get the powers and you instantly know how to use them, you know how to do this, it improves your fighting techniques and all that kind of stuff. We know that exists, it's a fact, right? But that doesn't, and this is yet another thing towards my case of that Kat and Kimberly are just plug and play. There's no disturbance in the team dynamic when Kat shows up, right? Her tactics are the same that Kim's would have been. Like it would have been really nice for a couple of episodes for the other Rangers to have to adapt to Kat acting differently in a fight to Kim, right?
Or even just getting used to her being a part of the team and like the new dynamic in general.
And you know what I think?
Go ahead, Brian.
And you know what I think would have been a more interesting way to go about that too is, and this is something I feel like you could have also given to like Rocky and Adam and Aisha too, is, and also just, other Rangers in general, but, they kind of touched on this, I want to say, but not really. I think it would have been really interesting if there had been, after a while, let's say that like, let's throw a scenario out there. Let's say that Kat's in a fight, but she doesn't do that well at first. And there's little things that, the other Rangers are looking at and going, I don't know if we can really trust her. Are we sure that she's one of us? I mean, I know Zordon said she's cool, but like, I don't know. I mean, we've dealt with an evil Ranger before, and that causes conflict with like Tommy and the other people and going, hey, look, I was evil too at first, but like,
we won't get that till Dino Thunder.
Yeah, like I feel like that would have been a really interesting conflict where Tommy's making a case for Kat. Like, look, no, she's renounced all this evil crap and she's one of us now. And they're like, but can we really trust her? And she has to like earn that trust. I feel like that would have been so much more interesting.
Yeah, but they didn't really have time for that, did they?
No, they didn't.
All right, so to get back to the villains.
Yes.
I think the other thing that Rito brings that is why I love Rito so much is he's charming, right? He's just got this thing about him where you're like, I find him really amusing. Like Goldar's just kind of a douche. Zed's this ragey monster. Rita's screaming all the time. Squat and Babu don't exist anymore. Finster's this walked over carpet.
Literally.
Rito's just charming. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Rito's got that energy. Like if everybody else on the moon is just like, it's a really like Rita's just like, oh man, it's a wonderful day, and I do love that energy. It's a great day to kill some Power Rangers. Like I
destroy. The word you're looking for is destroy. We don't use the K word.
Sorry,
it's a children's
my
show.
bad. That's right. I apologize.
And one of the bigger differences with Rito is that like, we talked about in a much earlier episode, is that he fails forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
He Goldar fails.
Like, I think the phrase that perfectly describes Rito is, didn't expect that to work the way it did.
And I think he's actually said that a few times during the season too.
Yeah.
I just he's not the most conniving of villains. He's not the most sinister, but he gets the job done, right? And he's absolutely lovable while he's doing it. And I never thought I'd say those words about a giant skeleton boy that smells his own armpits.
Yeah. Like if you have a Three Stooges of, Actually, I don't know if I'm qualified to say that because I'm not as well versed on the Three Stooges, but he would definitely be like a Mo, I think. He's the leader of like the rambunctious group, and like I don't know, he's got this Three Stooge kind of energy about him that he lightens up the room with his goofiness.
It's sort of funny because he's kind of a balance of like lackey, but with good ideas. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
Goldar, on very rare occasions, or maybe I'm just making this up, had, he'd fight the Rangers, right? But he's not the kind of guy who's going to go to fence, or actually, I think he did a couple times. He'd go to fence or ask for a monster. But Rito comes in with sort of his own things. And he's like, look, I have these cool tangas. I have this weird vampire thing that's not really important or anything, but it can, fight the Rangers. And I'm going to fight the Rangers. And I'm going to do stuff. And this is a plan. And, it's like, not like Ben said, he's not conniving, but he's not completely stupid.
Yes.
Yeah. And I feel like Goldar is the most interesting in season 1, and even saying that's giving him a little too much credit. He's got more to do.
Interesting might be the wrong word. Effective might be the right word.
Yeah.
He's effective in season 1.
Yes. And then season 2, he just kind of he gains his wings, but he loses a backbone. And
like when Zed shows up, right? Like he's like, okay, cool. I'm gonna work with this guy because he's got it going on. And then Zed figures out he's in love with Rita, and he's like, this is stupid. And like then he just doesn't do anything with it.
Yeah. So I feel like Rito was a way for them to be like, let's try and like make the villains fun again.
Which they succeeded in that.
Yeah.
So we kind of fell down this rabbit hole on his introduction, but we get introduced to Ninja this season.
Yes.
Totally do right himself.
Cue Brian's impression.
I'm certainly not Marvin the Martian. And Dudley Do Right. I wrote a note about, and I didn't really get to use it when we recorded Ninja Quest, but he seems to me like he feels like Marvin the Martian went to the gym, got jacked up, and he's got a really bad like temper problem to the point where he turns into a different person when he snaps. And but I really like Ninjor, and I think it's interesting how he kind of, even though they don't really interact too much, like his energy kind of plays off of Rito's, I feel, in a weird way, because it's like the villains have a new person to interact with, the heroes have a new person to interact with as well. In Ninjor. And I like what he adds to the mythos of the Rangers, personally.
Mike?
Like I said it on Ninja Quest, the first time I heard him speak, I started laughing my butt off because it was just like, you hear it's like, oh yeah, the great Ninjor, and you're expecting like some serious character, because it's like, oh, this is the person who made the coins, and then it's like, Dudley Do Right. I'm like, wait a minute.
Now,
take this guy seriously?
Let me ask you a question. Would your opinion of Ninja had changed if he had, say, a Master Splinter type voice?
I think it would have been better if he had more of like a Master Splinter type voice.
Yeah,
I'm going to disagree with that, because first, I love Ninja's voice, so it's a lot less annoying than the Alien Rangers voices. But the thing is that Ninjor is a contrast to Zordon a little bit, because Zordon is our floating head in the tube. This is the person we thought was the creator of the power coins up until this moment, right? So then you have this like ninja dude who's like, oh yeah, I created these things, this is my jam, oh, I don't like you, go away. Whereas like Zordon would have been like, ah, yes, teenagers with attitude. I see in your hearts that you are blah 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 blah. So to have Ninja have like this deep like voice, I feel like would have just made him a little too similar to Zordon. But I really like Ninjor. I wish he existed as more than just, oh my god, this battle's getting too hard, let's call Ninjor.
Yeah, he felt like the
But-
get out of villains free card.
And then when was it? Was it in Master Vile in the Metallic Armor where like Ninjor gets he's captured, right? In a previous episode.
Changing
then-
the Zords, yeah.
Rito just like drops the urn and he escapes and then he gets recaptured again. And the Rangers have like zero reaction to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love Ninjor for what he was, right? He's just this. And I think it's quite fitting that he has the Dudley Do Right style voice because that's what he is, right? Like he created these things for good. He wants to do things for good, even though he's kind of a douchebag to the Rangers when they first show up.
I mean, I probably would be too.
I mean, if Tommy walks in, I'm just gonna punch him in the face.
See?
But it just, I don't know. There's just a certain amount of, if we'd gone into the, I don't think the Ninja character would have worked with anything super serious. Like the point is he is this, he's almost the Rangers comic relief that is an alpha, right? Like, so when he shows up, he is this otherworldly entity. And I quite like that. But anyway.
You brought up an important person, or robot named Alpha.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how Alpha is more willing to put himself at risk this season? Like, hey, there's a bomb. I'm just going to take it out myself.
And not know how to disarm it.
And magically is sweating all over the place while trying to do it.
That was pretty great.
Also,
Yeah.
Alpha argues with Zordon. Like he gets it's not quite like when he went evil, but there's a point where Zordon is like, you need to do this and this, Alpha, and Alpha's like, what do you think I'm doing? Alpha bites back a little bit in his own like cute way, but like you can feel the annoyance in his little robot voice, and Zordon like, oh, you need to do this, Alpha. It's like, I'm trying, it's not working.
Alpha's getting upset.
He's like, you need to call the Rangers. I'm like, yeah, already did that, Zordon. Like, I'm not new here.
Yeah.
I've only been doing this for like the last like 10,000 years with you or something.
Well, I guess we need Zordon to have some kind of dialogue since he's mostly useless.
Alpha needs a spa day.
I think.
What's a spa day for a robot? An oil change?
Yeah,
Probably.
It's one of those baths that they put C-3PO in.
I was thinking the same thing, actually.
This oil bath feels so good. So 2 new sets of Zords this season, right?
Uh-huh.
The Ninja Zords and the Shogun Zords, because that's what they decided to call them. How did you feel about these new Zords and things?
For the Ninja Zords, the Power Ranger movie was better because they actually had, abilities with the individual Zords, and they're able to utilize it in a way a team would actually utilize it before having to go into the Ninja Megazord.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the show, it kind of was just there. And then the Shogun Zords were the Shogun Zords. It was kind of cool that like each Ranger got their own identical one in a way. But like that was also really kind of brought in for the Alien Rangers because that was really more for them to use than the others, because like it was evident. It was like, oh yeah, Kim, you're gonna ride in the the White Shogun Zord with Tommy, and then it became Cat being in the White Shogun Zord with Tommy, because there's only
Except
5
for-
of them.
Except for when it was pink because they were using the toy to do the weird Ultra Mega Shogun Zord
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, and
So-
Titanus came back.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was like so weird. Like, we haven't seen Titanus since season 1. How does he work into this?
Yeah.
Like,
Too many
Cyber
questions.
footage. Honestly, couldn't care less. I didn't feel any attachments to the Ninja Zords because they weren't there for that long anyway. And I did not like the Shogun Zords at all. For the simple fact that I think all Power Ranger Zords should have a cockpit and should have like not like the weird standy thing they've done in like later Power Ranger episodes, but like an actual like thing with buttons and a controller and like a steering wheel, like things.
and as long
You're
as
talking
it's
about-
stereo, it's okay then too.
You're talking about like Dino Fury, how they like stand on a platform and all that.
Well,
It's like-
Dino Fury, Ninja, Samurai, etc. Like there's a lot of seasons that do this, and in one
I'm not a fan
season,
of that
I
either.
don't necessarily mind it. Like not to get too into other seasons, but like in Dino Thunder, yeah, they have their standing, but like they use like it worked in Dino Thunder for me, but then it doesn't work for me in other seasons. Maybe I'm
Right.
just anti-Nickelodeon, which is also possible.
That's a very good point.
But like I said, ultimately, I like the cockpit idea.
Yeah. I with the Ninja Megazord, I've got nostalgia glasses on because, and I don't know if I've ever told this story, and I'll make it really, really quick. I got a Ninja Megazord for Christmas one year, and I had it for all of like an hour before I accidentally dropped it down the stairs as I was trying to get it upstairs, and the legs broke off of the frog, and I could never reattach them. So I always was just like, that's the one Zord that just never was for me until I got the legacy version. But you know, like
those
that
Zords
was
The Zord that got away, Brian.
It was word that never
Yeah.
was. It was a sign the moment you got it.
yeah.
It
So
was not meant to
See,
be.
look, it didn't even last long as a toy.
yeah. So there you go. I think out of the two, I think the one I think looks cooler. Even though I do like the Ninja Megazord and I've got kind of a sentimental attachment to that, I think the Shogun Megazord just looks like an absolute beast. And I do love the Fire's sword. And I like how they use it in Kaku Ranger. I'm not going to try and talk too much about Sentai in this wrap up, but I do love the backstory of the Shogun Megazord in Kaku Ranger because it's like a living entity thing. Anyways, that's not important. I can see why you guys don't like the Ninja Megazord, and very valid points, but for me, I'm always going to like that one too. It's not my favorite Megazord, but I'm always going to like it. You know, because people get weird attachments to things, I think. So,
Yeah.
anyways.
I liked the Shogun Zord, mainly because it was a different kind of Zord, right? I'm not saying they're the best Zord. My favorite, it might be my favorite Megazord ever, is the Thunder Megazord. I don't know why. I just love the samurai aesthetic of it.
Yeah.
And it does samurai aesthetic better than the actual samurai Megazord.
Isn't that funny?
But I quite liked the Shogun Zords because they're just different kinds of Zords. Up to this point, everything had been kind of sleek and quick, and this thing was just. I think at one point in the episode where it shows up, I just called it a really big, beefy boy. Right? It's a big, thick boy with multiple C's. Right? It's just a tank.
It's a hoss. It's ready for
yeah.
a hoss fight.
It's a horse, and
Yeah.
it's just a nice way of doing something different. Yes, it would have been nice if all of the Rangers had their own Zords, but we won't get into that. But I mean, we've been going a little bit now, about an hour. Let's move to the Alien Rangers.
Okay.
there's a lot to say
Sasha
here,
has fallen
and
asleep.
Sasha has started hiding. Uh, there's a lot to say, and there's not a lot to say. Brian, let's start with you discussing the Alien Rangers. What did you think of the saga of the Alien Rangers as a whole? And how do you feel about the way that it was handled?
Right. Okay. So overall, and how it was handled. So I thought that the Alien Ranger saga was a very good way to try and introduce American kids into this idea, and they had done it earlier on in the season with the not the Ninjetti but the Ninja Powers, because copyright 20th Century Fox. The switching up how the suits are going to look. You know, this was a way to acclimate to what's going to happen once we get into Zeo and then Turbo and In Space and yada yada yada, where oh look, there's different Rangers and they have different powers, and those teams don't have to be made up of the same people that we've seen forever and ever. And one of the things I really like about this too is we get suits from a different Sentai season, and we can suddenly start to not have to cut those out of the Kaku Ranger footage that we've been using since the beginning of the season. I think, and I know that you made a point about this too. Like, I think I really like Delphine as a character, but I also would have just made her the Red Ranger if they were just going to put the Red Ranger in front of the team like that, because that it's a little weird how they do that, where it's like I'm the leader but I'm also going to be on the end of the team when we line up. It's like, why are you doing that? I think they serve a pretty good purpose, in that they establish that, hey, there's other Rangers out there, and they saved the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers butt, basically, because the Mighty Morphin Rangers they're not even on the rope at this point. They're on their backs and they're about to get a 10 count. And the Alien Rangers come in and literally save the day. I'm not going to get too much into the whole time travel thing or how nobody remembers them once times, because we could do a whole show about that, I think.
I think also one of the things that helps out is that all five of them are like their own separate characters that are completely different from the actual Rangers themselves, being alien and all. But also the fact that they're also having a massive flaw to them, being how they also they're from a planet of water. They need to always stay hydrated. So you're always having to find creative ideas to hydrate them, whether it be at a fountain or through a car wash, or at times having to send them back to their planet and then have them come back when they're needed. So it's so it adds a whole different dynamic having them around, because they have their own flaws that they have to attune to be able to be at full power to help Zordon and them.
Now, I'm just going to throw this question out to you real fast, Mike, or if anybody else knows. Was it explained that the water that they needed had to be fresh water or salt water?
I don't think it was ever explained that way.
It's a very specific kind of water that was needed. That's all they really say. Okay. And they admit.
Eventually, they say that.
That's true.
Yeah.
When they initially contact the Accretion Rangers, they're just like, "There's water on your planet. We're good."
Yeah.
Well,
and
yeah.
If it's salt water, Earth is 95%? No, well, not 99% of the water on Earth is salt water. And there's a vast swath of ocean on this planet. So I feel like they then, in order to fit that 10 episode limit and also put a limit on the Rangers, the Accretion Rangers, they kind of had to give some flimsy reason as to why. Oh well, the water on your planet's it's good, but it's not up here good.
Well,
So
because they're aliens, and not to get too much into it, the very simple explanation is there might be other elements that are found on their water on their planet that do not exist
Sure.
on our planet and our water.
Yeah.
Right.
That-
Which,
and that
if they
works.
put a single line in to explain that, would
Yeah.
have been great.
Yes, but they didn't.
But then I also have to throw this out there. I love how when the Kid Rangers are going to start their Zeo Crystal quest, and like each ranger is with a kid, and they go and they give them like possibly the most whatever line of encouragement, and then they just kind of kick him into the vortex. They go, "All right, off you go." It's like
It's almost like that scene in Kung Pao where like the baby's like going down the cliff and it's like, oh, so cute, and she like rolls it back down the cliff. Bye bye. It's almost like that kind of energy. I don't know. It's
it's
it's hilarious.
Follow your heart, kick him into the vortex.
Follow your heart and may your dreams come true. Peace. Eating him like Adam eats the Tengas or something. It's just all right. Bye. I hope you get good cell service in the past.
So I've made it no secret that I can't stand the Alien Rangers. It's not
Right.
because they did anything badly. It is because my ears start bleeding at the sound of their stupid dolphin voices. I'm sorry. It's like I understand what they were going for. I do. But my ears hurt listening to them. And if my ears are hurting listening to them, then what am I going to do? I'm going to now in the modern era, I'm going to fast forward through their scenes. So I couldn't. My ears were not happy. And it was very, like, I just turned off the volume and read the subtitles at one point because I just couldn't. Or actually, when they had subtitles on YouTube when I was watching those. But my point being that, like, yeah, they came in to help. Okay, they look differently. Like, I agree with Brian on his assessment of why they were brought in and what they're trying to establish. But when they leave, I'm like, okay, good riddance, see ya. I don't care. I don't. Yeah. And, I'm glad that they bonded with the Rangers. There's a scene towards the end of their saga. I think it's like, I can't remember what episode it was, when they're like in an empty pool, and the Rangers have to bring them water. And it's sort of like, on one part, it's keeping the Rangers still in place so that we remember that this is a temporary situation. But it's also a little bit of a frustrating situation because, yeah, you brought these Rangers to help, but now you're also helping them because they like, it's one of those like things where like I get what they were trying to go for. I'm just personally not into it.
Yeah, I think that episode was Hog Day Afternoon.
I think you're right. It was
with the Hydro Hog, which was like their big bad, and I was like,
oh yeah, because the Hydro Hog was like sucking the water out of them essentially.
Yeah, and okay. I'm
on the other end of the spectrum from you, Sasha, because I quite like the Accretion Rangers voices. And I realized after we recorded all of the stuff about the Accretion Rangers, why, right? Because they just sound like Vorlons from Babylon 5, which is my favorite TV show of all time. Like, they just sound like the Vorlons with all this weird stuff in the background. So I was much more used to that kind of communication. So I was just like, oh, they're Vorlons. So, I don't know. Okay. Overall, I didn't care for the Accretion Rangers. It was really cool to see a female-led team. Would have been nice for her to be female red, right? But if White's in the team, because Tommy exists, we got to have White be the leader.
Even though, like 2 seasons ago, we had a Red Ranger as the leader,
and next season we'll have a Red Ranger as the leader,
right? So it's just like it's so dumb.
Anyway, favorite episode of the season.
Okay, I have a few. I will say, I'm asking
you for one. We'll do honorable mentions later.
Okay. In terms of just when I put it, because
if it's a 3-parter, it could be the whole 3-parter.
sure. So just in terms of like my enjoyment, and this wasn't even one I actually reviewed necessarily, but I really enjoyed Rita's Pita.
Oh yeah, the eating episode.
Yeah, there was just something about it that was so entertaining to me. And there's other episodes that I really like too, but Rita's Pita, like, because I kept hearing y'all talk about that episode, and I was just like, I gotta watch this because it's one that I didn't get to because I was taking notes for other episodes, but then I kept hearing about it and I was like, all right, let me pop on Rita's Pita and see what this is. And I freaking loved it. I loved seeing JDF just, eating just tons and tons of fatty foods. And there's just something about that episode that I don't know. I just, it felt like Power Rangers to me. Like this felt like the kind of wacky hijinks that like they haven't really gotten to get up to in this season so far because there's been so much heavier stuff going on. So it was nice to kind of have what felt like a season 1 episode. Where like, oh, there's like, it almost felt like a follow-up to the Pudgy Pig episode. You know what I mean? In a weird sort of way. That's kind of what it felt like, and I really enjoyed that episode. So,
Mike,
personally, it would probably be Potion Notion because
okay,
Sasha's just mouthing no.
No, I said I knew it. Wow, you cannot read lips at all.
Yeah. But Potion Notion has like a couple good things to it. It's like one, you find out that like Finster has like created this monster, and like he tells like Goldar and them to like stay out of his lab, and I think it was like Goldar still goes into it anyways, and like brings out the love potion that they think was used on Zed to fall in love with Rita, and it ends up getting used on like Kim, who then like falls madly in love with like Skull and stuff like that. And like you had this really weird love triangle with Principal Kaplan, Miss Appleby, and Lieutenant Stone, which was really awkward but funny at the same time.
I'm glad I missed that
is the
one.
word you're looking for.
But one of the cool things though is that it was utilized as a way for Finster to make an antidote to the love potion. You end up finding out that Zed really was in love with Rita. And after having his heart broken by Kim, because she got hit with the antidote as well, because Finster just went around and did the antidote on everybody that they used it on. Like there's a really good moment at the dance where it's like, you see Skull just all defeated, just sitting at the table, like all sad. And Kim actually comes up and like makes amends with him, being like, hey, sorry, blah blah, but we can still be really good friends. And then they actually dance together, and it's like, it's really part of that character development for Skull in that episode, because it's like it's somebody who got hurt but was still able to be like, I can grow from this. And it's something that everyone also goes through all the time through life. You're always going to have that type of Ben just shifty eyes, but like, so it's like I like that episode just because like a lot of the stuff and the revelation that Zed really was in love with Rita. It wasn't just the potion.
Sasha, what's your favorite of the seasons?
Follow that cab. Honestly, I love the ridiculousness of Kimberly being trapped in a car with Bulk and Skull. Like it was silly, and it was sort of like, to me, it was sort of the right amount of silly and ridiculousness that I've come to expect from Power Rangers. And because a lot of this season is actually pretty like, it's either kind of stupid in parts, which was my reaction to Rita's Pita, no offense, Brian, or it's just 3-parter, bad things happening, Rangers on the back burner. So Follow That Cap was just fun and silly, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
For me, I think my favorite episodes might be. It's probably Ninja Quest, to be honest.
Okay.
The four-parter that starts the season. Because no one actually wants to acknowledge a friend in need. It sets the tone for the season as a whole. It introduces my favorite villain of the Mighty Morphin era. It there's that one scene of the Zords being destroyed, and it's just a really well done story. Well, it's probably the best paced story that Power Rangers has told, honestly, to this point. But yeah, I think Ninja Quest takes the biscuit for myself.
Did Rito ever find a place to put the white tiger Zord head?
I don't know. What about honorable mentions? Are there any honorable mentions for you guys?
Yeah, there's quite a few. What I will say is I think certainly not a different shade of pink. But Master Vile in the metallic armor is probably like when I say Rita's PETA is one of my favorites. I mean from like a comedic standpoint, but certainly Master Vile in the metallic armor. Not that. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Basically the finale that wasn't the finale. That was really really good. I thought. Because I think we all agreed that was like the best paced 3-parter that we had, and that was the one with the conga line that Ben loves so much. And yeah, it was that to me felt like if they were gonna like end Power Rangers like and not do any more, that would have been like the natural stopping point, right?
Kind of.
So for me,
So-
I think one of the things that really, oh, I'm sorry, Brian, was there something else you want?
No, sorry.
I would say the multi-parters were pretty decent this season overall, but I'm gonna pass it to Passing the Lantern. I'm on the filler episode kick as an honorable mention, and maybe I should have gone with this one for my favorite episode because this episode is the only remotely Adam-centric episode we get this season. But also, it has such a nice Vulcan skull moment, right? Where they actually end up being recovering Adam's lantern and giving it back, and it's just funny watching Zed like, yes, we're going to use this magic ancient lantern, and then finds out it's the wrong lantern.
Whoopsies.
Because of, I think inadvertently because of Vulcan Skull's actions, or either that or I think the monster just ends up taking the wrong lantern. But I really loved it for the Vulcan Skull moment. Yeah.
I'd have to go with I don't remember the name of the episode, but it was during the Zeo Crystal Quest, and it was Adam's Zeo Crystal Quest. It was like the only other like Adam-centric kind of episode, even though Johnny Young Bosch was not playing Adam at the time. It was the kid version of him. I kind of
was it Along Came a Spider?
Maybe? Question
Yeah.
mark. Because he was like, I believe Adam was the second Zeo quest because Rocky was the first one, because Rocky had to pull the Zeo crystal out of the volcano. Which, sure, we're just gonna let a kid climb into a volcano and just grab the Zeo crystal, but like Adams was kind of cool because he kind of like ended up going to like I don't want to say Japan, but like an ancient Asia time period where he
Korea.
had to Korea, that's what it was. Thank you, Brian. He had to go to like ancient Korea and like meet with his ancestors there and kind of go on this like quest, like more of a quest than than any of the others really had to go through, except for maybe Tommy, because Tommy. But it was a nice quest. It was kind of cool how this like old man senpai was just kind of like teasing the young Adam up to the point when he finally realized, like, oh, you're the guy who's supposed to like guide me on this quest. It was kind of nice, and it kind of also in a way had like a foreign film type feel to it, in a way, like the way they kind of told the story, like, because sometimes foreign films can have like the little bit of the silliness to it as well, and I really like that. So that would be like one of my honorable mentions, was when Adam went on his Zeo quest.
Okay. We've not talked about them yet because we always save them till kind of the last thing we talk about. But it is the true heroes of the franchise, our beloved Bulk and Skull, and this season Lieutenant Stone.
No.
We're gonna have to talk about Lieutenant Stone. I'm sorry, he's not one of the beloved. He's definitely not one of the beloved heroes, but we're gonna have to talk about him, I'm afraid.
He was there. He's a jerk.
It kind of eases up as the season goes on, though.
But he turns into a complete dingus, is the word I think I'm able to use. In a family-friendly environment. He goes from being a drill instructor to being just a complete dingus. Right? Like
there's an entire moment where he chastises the Rangers and doesn't believe them when a monster attacked them. This is Power Rangers. There's a monster that attacks every week. Like, what are you on?
Like,
he chastises the Rangers?
Sorry, he chastises Bulk and Skull.
Oh, okay,
but in that
right, like there's what was it? It was in I think it was in Master Vile or whatever, when they're on the like they tried to rescue kids and like on the monster attacks, and for some reason that I still cannot fathom, Lieutenant Stone doesn't believe them that a monster attacked them, even though there's a monster that attacks people every week.
Well, not only that, but like on top of that, there's like the stakeout that they do, and you know, he like, I guess they fallen asleep on the stakeout, and then like a kite falls on him and it has like a dragon on it, and he freaks out over it, and you see kind of Bulk and Skull like lackadaisically mocking him, like, oh no, a monster, as he's like running away scared. Like, I think that might have been the same episode too.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So it's like that sequence though kind of turned him around a little bit from, you know, because after that he doesn't give Bulk and Skull crap about, you know, being attacked by monsters after that point, because he goes, okay, you know, even though it was a kite, it happened.
Yeah, still doesn't make him a better person, in my opinion. Like, yes, I see where you're going with, but I'm like, I'm still not a fan. He can just go jump in a hole
or take over Ernest. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
No, I still vote for jump in a hole.
He can go run a juice bar.
So, Bulk and Skull.
In Stone Canyon.
Bulk and Skull.
Bulk and Skull.
They, in the first episodes of the season, because we're still doing this bit about the first three not existing, they overhear two young ladies discussing how they like a woman in uniform.
They like a woman in a uniform? I mean, I'm game. Good for them, but
they like a man in uniform. Sorry,
very, very progressive of Power Rangers.
We and Bulk and Skull make the declaration that they are going to join the Junior Police Patrol.
Or Skull.
Yeah.
And in fairness to them, they see it through rather than just quitting, right? To the point where they just graduate from the police academy after like 2 days, I think it seems.
Time is hard to judge in Power Rangers, especially when you have a multi-part thing, because I don't know.
I would assume each part is a day, so you had 4 days.
All right, fine. 4 days to pass the police academy, and they go on to just genuinely be police officers, right? They kind of commit to what they're doing. And we'll start with Sasha this time. Please talk about our heroes and their journey this season.
I think what is important to remember here is that, and we talked about this when we recorded it initially, is that their motives for joining the police force are not altruistic. But, and this is a big but, they see it through, and they don't balk at the fact, no pun intended, that it's hard. Sure, there's like a montage where they're a little bit silly, like when they're doing pull-ups, they're actually like sitting on the ground, but they see it through. And based on the training montage, it's not easy. And they really put the work in. Like, they run after Kimberly and they try to get her car back for her, right? Despite the fact that they missed the burglar in broad daylight stealing the car in the first place.
And kind of helps them take it too.
That's
right,
just
but
Vulcan
at
Skull.
the end of the day,
Yeah.
they're trying to do good. They want to do good, right? Same thing, like they returned Adam's lantern to him. They ran into the water without question to rescue children. Even granted, the children were not in any danger, but that's not the point. The point is they were perfectly willing to run straight into the water and rescue the kids. And we know that Bulk and Skull are excellent with children. We've seen that from last season. So they have this really, their journey is not across one season. It is across the entire Zordon era.
Yep.
And this is a really interesting and a really good progression for them. They still have a lot of work to do. They still have a long way to go, minus their whole experience as chimps. But it's all part of the journey. And I enjoyed them for the most part this season. So...
And then let's also bring up the fact that like you had the museum episode with the face stealer, and like you had a moment with them where, you know, the Rangers get the vase back with the monster inside, and you know, with the mask, and Bulk and Skull are like, hand it over, we need to bring this back, because they're actually supposed to guard it. And then they're coming back, and then they actually get in trouble for it, and the Rangers are like, all right, have fun, you know, in a weird way. But also, but yeah, so you had stuff like that, but like overall, it also helped with the overall relationship that they ended up having with the Rangers themselves by doing this, because like when they made the announcement, the Rangers were there when they made the announcement that they were going to do it. They're just like, huh, because like everyone kind of had that like, yeah, okay, we'll believe it when we see it type thing, and then when they graduate, the Rangers are actually there, you know, celebrating it. You know, they're cheering him on. So it's like, you know, it's stuff like, and it kind of piles on as time goes on, because like it just builds those relationships up even more. So gives them more depth.
I don't really have too much else to add on. I think Sasha and Mike kind of nailed pretty succinctly just what makes Bulk and Skull's journey work in this season so well. I will say too that this also, even though like Sasha said, their reasons for getting into the police force is not altruistic, because they got women on the mind when they do that, or at least Bulk does. You know, I will say that maybe, you know, like part of what inspired them to do that is like seeing the Rangers help out the community, and like obviously they've been trying to help out in their own way, and this was a way, because like, you know, this was very much a, well, we can't be superheroes, but how else can we help out our community the way that they do? And they joined the police force, and I think, I agree. It works very well in favor of their characters and how they grow as people. So, yeah, I liked their journey this season. Lieutenant Stone, again, bit of a dick. Um, and that's not
Good
just
show.
because he's a private eye. But yeah, just uh, he's a necessary evil, and not even evil. He's more of like a pain in the side. But he does serve a purpose.
Well,
And
look,
then-
he's not out there making monsters and trying to kill a bunch of teenagers, but he's still a jerk.
Yes.
It should also be noted that like Bulk, when they were turned into kids, he was actually turned into a monster called Brat Boy,
Yeah, the 60s
which was pretty
book.
cool. And then Paul Schreier actually directed 2 episodes this season as well.
Yeah, I think he directed
directed-
that one in particular.
He directed the episode directly before they went into the Zeo quest, and then he directed the first Zeo Crystal Quest episode, which was Rockies.
Oh wow.
Do you think, this is a conversational point here, do you think this is the most important part of Bulk and Skull's arc to get them to where they need to be in Countdown to Destruction? Or is there
I definitely
another
think
more
it is.
pivotal point?
I think this is because this is the beginning of their transition from just being bully, full-time comedic slapstick to actually taking on responsibility. Because when you get to that last penultimate episode of the Zordon era, this is like that real first building block to get them to that point when they announce that they're going into the police academy and stuff like that. Sasha's shaking her head no.
Nope. I would say that this is the next step in their natural journey, but this is not where this journey began. This journey began when they ended up, impromptu babysitting a kid and running after the baby, the stroller. Right? We already know that these are guys that we've already have established moments where we know care and want to do the right thing. The difference is that now they've taken an opportunity that was presented to them without these altruistic moments. First, with not the most altruistic motivations, right? But that's different than when they ran after a baby in a stroller, or where they ended up babysitting that kid, which I think is the same kid. But right, like these are characters that over the course of these 3 seasons we've seen grow from just bullies to people that care about others to now junior police detectives, whatever you want to call it. So this is not where their journey began as heroes. This is just the natural continuation of things we've seen established over the course of the 3 seasons.
Right, but
We
that
just
wasn't
stepped it up a notch.
that wasn't the question I asked.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What I asked is this the most pivotal point, not necessarily the beginning of their journey? Because arguably for me, this is more pivotal than the rescue of the baby. The rescue of the baby is important, because it's the start of their journey and it shows them and the Rangers kind of starting to work together a little bit. But here we have Bulk and Skull actively going out of their way to find a way to help people. And when they realize it's not going to get them anything, sticking with it. The stuff with the baby was done on instinct. Right.
So then let me throw this out there. So then Mike, you said that the joining in the police force that was that kind of okay.
Yeah, that was kind of like that turning point a little bit for them.
So I think joining the police force isn't the turning point. I think what they do with it after they joined is the point. Because we see them taking like the fact that they stuck with it, I think is the bigger moment than them deciding to join.
Sure.
And what they do with it afterwards.
And yeah, I'm not going to go into a whole spiel about it, but I will agree with Ben in that this is it's the most important pivotal because it is a literal pivoting of their positions as people in their community because they are making a major life choice here. This is a major decision that's going to impact their lives. And they stick with it, and rightfully so. Like, everybody that knows them is super proud of them because I think, the general consensus is, hey, they might not have, like, I wouldn't put it past the Rangers to think that they would think later on in life Bulk and Skull wouldn't amount to much. So the fact that they did this and they signed up and they stuck with it is a big thing. And it does lead to them eventually getting to Countdown to Destruction. It leads to them being who we need them to be later on. But I don't think that happens if they don't, sign up for the Junior Police Academy. I just don't think it happens. I mean, maybe it would, but definitely not in the same way. And I don't think there would have had nearly the same impact. I don't think it would have had the same impact, really, because I don't know.
So I think that kind of covers all our bases for season 3, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the way to express this. Of the Mighty Morphing seasons, which is your favorite?
Not everybody jump all up at once.
Like if you were putting them in an order, how would you do it? Like,
okay.
I'm not saying that if you pick this is your favorite season of Power Rangers. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
My point is
right.
Of the 3, because each of the 3 seasons offers something a little bit different, right? Season 1's much more simple with a Monster of the Week sort of structure. Season 2 is playing around with the transferal of powers and things like that. And then season 3 is this complicated story mess. So
like
almost a deconstruction.
I couldn't say like which one would be like my favorite overall season, but like they're like, like you were just saying, there's elements to each season that's different. Like for me personally, my favorite Megazord was the original one, just the Dino Megazord. That's my Megazord right there. But like but I felt that, like, depending on who you talk about, it's like for us, Adam season 2 would be his best season. Like, so it's like, it's certain things that you look at, like they definitely did better at storytelling in season 3, hands down, because there were end games that they had to reach to. And when we look at Bulk and Skull, that was probably one of the better seasons for them in their development overall, by joining the police academy, becoming police officers, sticking through it, stuff like that. So it's like, it's kind of hard to like say which one of the 3, because there's both good and bad to all of them in a way.
I agree. And I'm gonna try, if I try and put my favorites in order. Sorry if I cut you off, by the way.
No, you're good.
But if I had to put them in order, what I'm going to try and not do, because I've sat here with you all on this journey together, as we're getting ready to go into Zeo, and I've rewatched season 1, season 2, season 3, and so I'm going to try and give an answer that is not, tainted by rose-colored glasses, nostalgia goggles, if you will, because then it would be very easy for me to say, oh, season 1, because it has a dragon sword and everything that I remember about it growing up. I think if I had to put it in any kind of order, just in terms of like my enjoyment of the seasons, I would say, oh my God, let me think. I want to say I would go season 3, season 1, and then season 2. Yeah, I think just because season 2, even though it introduces the greatest Power Ranger of all time, Adam Park, season 2 was a bit of a mess. And
Sasha, what are your thoughts?
yeah.
I honestly hate all 3 seasons equally, but I'm so ready to move on to Zio. It is not even funny. But
Yeah.
I liked Brian's characterization of where he put the season. It was 3-1-2, right? So I think that's an interesting way to do it. I would argue that I think this season definitely has a slightly more concise story to it. Like there was some planning involved ahead of time. I would even say I kind of want to put it at 3-2-1. I'm not married to it because I just don't care enough.
Right.
And despite the fact that the first season had a lot going for it because it is the first season, it was just so cheesy. And I think parts of season 2 hold up a little bit better nearly 30 years later than the first season does. That's not saying much, but just like a little bit. It's like a difference between like a 1 and a 2, right? It's like a difference between like an F and a D. Like a D is still passing.
Like, and I can totally see your point of view on that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think 3-2-1 is the same order I'd put it in. I am of the opinion that season 3 of Mighty Morphin is the best Power Ranger season before in space. It's better than Zeo, it's better than Turbo, but that's giving.
I mean, it's not that hard to be better than Turbo, but okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Guys, I'm the new
point
Blue
being,
Ranger.
It's a very well, like they do a lot of things right this season that they don't do in other seasons. That being said, any final thoughts on season 3?
No, I'm done. Make it go away.
We have talked about this season so much. I'm ready to move on to Zio. I don't know about y'all.
Then let's do that.
Yes.
Next time you hear from the 4 of us will either be some form of live show or it will be the upcoming episodes that will lead us into the Zio era with the first episode of the Zio arc, which is called, off the top of my head,
Zio Beginning?
Zio Beginning, yeah. In which time we will discuss so much more. We will go Zio. Mike, where can people find you on the internet?
Twitter at @TheLindenbaum75, Facebook at facebook.com/X75Productions, Twitch doing the gaming thing at twitch.tv/TheMichaelX75, and everything is also on the website at txhthockey.com, and for the show specific /X75Productions/VFTG, and on the Twitter for the show at VFTG_PR.
Brian, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at OneDrunkGeek. You can find me on Instagram at Dragon22. You can find me on TikTok at Blue Ranger B-Rai. That might be changing considering how we're going to be doing things with Zio. I have no idea what Ranger color I'm going to be, but we'll save that for next time. And then you can also find me at Castwave Studios doing the beer review stuff. And I'm going to be trying to change that up a little bit, but also at One Drunk Geek. Come check that out. And also our back catalog of Boldly Going Nowhere. Friends of the show, have been for a long time, and absolutely love working with y'all.
Sasha, where can people find you?
I just think it's amusing that the youngest out of the 4 of us has the least amount of social media accounts that she shares online. Just throw that out there. But you can find me over on geekgirl101.tumblr.com. That is the best way to reach me. I am always on there. You can send me some questions, and I'm always happy to answer them. And then, of course, you can find me over on Twitter at Geeky Kaplan, and that is Kaplan with a K after the greatest superhero in the Marvel Universe, Billy Kaplan.
And your other podcast being?
Yes, and of course you can find me on my other podcast, Nerdy Notions. Finishing up season 2 and have some very interesting things planned for season 3.
And this is the point where she says she has the least amount of social media to point out. But I will also point out that C and I both only have 3. You can find me on Twitter at
Bob T Goldfish.
You can find me on Twitch doing the video gaming thing at
twitch.tv/321_TV.
And you can find the sister show, The Voices from the Grid, Awesome Mania, over at
txhthockey.com/x75production/awesomemania,
which is a wrestling podcast that Mike and I do with a friend of ours every month, where we sit down and we watch through old pay-per-views and riff on them. Time to leave season Mighty Morphing behind, and I will leave everyone with this thought that every time you see Kat out of the morph, she looks completely lost. Just it's her default facial expression. Anyway, we'll leave you and Mighty Morphin behind with the words of the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, be excellent to each other. Party on, non-gender specific honorifics.
And for one final time, be sure to grab your power coins and your power morphers.
And may the power protect you.
And don't forget to join us whenever we post episodes again, as we continue the journey of the greatest heroes of the franchise, Bulk and Skull.